You're listening to Living Out Loud with my mom, Michelle Flamer. Yep, she's a flamer and proud of it. Get ready to learn about queers in your communities doing great things every week.
Welcome back to Living Out Loud. I'm Michelle, and today's conversation is a personal one. I'm joined by Tommy Marzella, who is here today in his individual capacity. While Tommy has spent much of his career in youth-centered spaces, this conversation is not about any one organization. It is about people, connection, and what it means to help young people feel seen and supported. As a parent to a 14-year-old non-binary kid, this topic is deeply personal to me. We have been intentional about keeping our kid away from online spaces so far, and at the same time, I know those conversations are coming. Today, we are talking about the power of peer connection, positive youth development, and how online spaces can shape identity, belonging, and resilience. I am grateful to have Tommy here to explore this with me. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Michelle. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. It's exciting to have you here. I would love for you to share a little bit of who you are in the sense of where you began. I always ask my guests to talk about a little bit about their coming out story because kind of in order for me to understand people in general, I like to know where they've come from in order to know where they're going. So that's sort of my peripheral on that.
Perfect. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Tommy Marzella. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm so excited to be here tonight. Um, I guess to start, I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up in Ohio, and I love it here. And I think one of the things growing up, I sort of always knew that I wanted to be in marketing and communications. And for the first 10 years of my career, that's where I spent most of my career. I kind of grew up in the advertising world and got to work on some really cool big brand companies, and then was able to pivot over into tech marketing for a while, which was really exciting to me. And then eventually I was able to work with a nonprofit that the Trevor Project that focuses on LGBTQ suicide prevention, which is where I am today. And as you noted, Michelle, I am here in my own personal capacity tonight. Um, and so, as I think about sort of my ethos in life and why I'm here, right? It's I just
Mhm.
am here to help other people live the best life that they can. And I think there's
Love.
so many ways that we can do that. And my career is just one of those ways. There's volunteering, there's the things that we do in our life, the way that we spend our time with other people. And so that has sort of been like my life mission. To answer your question on coming out, is now an okay time for that or
Perfect. No, let's hear it. I'm dying to know. I want to hear all your story. It's great.
yeah, I mean, I think, I was one of those people that sort of felt different from a young age. I knew that I was attracted to same-sex men, or as I was growing up, right? And so I probably started to like really identify with that in high school. That was really the time that I started to like feel those feelings more. And I'm like, oh, this is really ever present and something that makes me feel different. I was a theater kid as well, so I felt like I was surrounded by show choir friends, theater friends, and that was like a really great spot for that because you
Uh,
often find others who are, part of the queer community in the LGBTQ plus family.
for sure.
I think as my very first coming out was probably first to like myself and then to my friends. At the time, a girlfriend of mine who is now also part of the queer community herself. Funny how that works out. And then to
Hmm.
my parents, right? I chose that at separate paths in my life, and so or I chose that at separate times, I should say. So I came out to my mom first. I was watching an episode of Desperate Housewives with her, and so I know at the time, and we
That's
were
classic.
lost in Wisteria Lane, and I just remember saying, "I have something to tell you." And at the time, I think she had a gut feeling, and she kind of made a comment about like, oh, like I hope that, it's not related to you being gay or something. And it was, of course. And so, and then I told my dad separately. My family owned a restaurant. And I remember I used to work up there. I did kind of everything there was to do, from serving to busboying to dishwashing. And I kind of snuck a back corner one night and talked to my dad about it, and was like, I have something to tell you. I'm gay. And he had a lot of questions about that initially, and I think had very similar responses that most parents might have. Did I do something? Is there a way that like I influenced this? And then I think starting to go through like the practical things that parents might think about what it means to raise a queer child. And so I think we got off to a little bit of a rocky start on both sides. It wasn't until years later my dad told me he went to some therapy, which I did not know about, and he sort of
Mm.
wanted to explore what it was like, do some self-reflection, and ultimately the therapist just led him down the path of like, this is just who your kid is. And so he was very lucky to have a really great affirming therapist in that way.
That is so progressive. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you don't hear a lot about dads like taking that leap. That must have made you feel really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, I found out like years after the fact, like probably 5 years. I mean, there was a period where I came out in high school, I went to college, my dad and I didn't talk for a period of months, and then we sort of like kind of got over it. I mean, that's just like what we do in our family. And, I think I know it meant a lot to him. This is a story I probably don't tell enough, but my dad passed. He died from cancer in 20 oh, it was right before COVID, so 2019, I believe. And then he left us letters that we received at like various increments after his passing. I know,
He's
I
special. Like, he's really
I know.
special.
And one of the things in that so there were it was either the 6 or the 12-month letter. There were only two of them that he sort of noted what his regrets were, some of those, and one of the ones he had shared with me specifically was around how he responded in the coming out sense. And so it's just a really like powerful reflection to kind
I'm
of,
gonna
I'm just
go.
imagining like him reflecting on, I have cancer, I'm not going to be here forever, and then writing these future letters on what do I want my children to know. I have two brothers. Yeah, and so it meant a lot to me. I very intentionally make sure I read those every year on his either his birthday or his passing or Father's Day, all which always happen to be in the same week
Beautiful.
because it's Pride Month also. So
Mm.
his birthday, Father's Day, and Death Day are all in June, which is also Pride Month. So it's always a very overwhelming month for me, but very
Wow.
meaningful, very meaningful.
My dad passed away 2020 in July. Um, but I had a really close relationship with him. So when I hear it, it gets me. So how was your mom overall? She was fine. I mean, like, they were still married at this point, and
Yeah, they were high school sweethearts together
oh,
for, if I'm getting this right, 43 or 44 years, married for 37
beautiful.
years. So,
Beautiful.
stayed together, wonderful marriage. My family like survives on humor, so we're always like finding usually like dark humor in things, and so we're always like
I love
making
that.
very sarcastic jokes with each other. But ultimately it she's good, and so I have my partner now, Max, who was also my partner when my dad passed, so he's been in my life. We just hit 9 years this summer. I guess it'll be 10 years next summer. And so it's one of those things that sort of, I think it's always growing and evolving. And we've all got things in our life. And I think for my mom, it's just like who I am, and this is part of it. And I don't know that she sort of singled it out or calls it out in any way, but rather it's just like, just who he is. And he's part of the community. So I don't know that I'll ever necessarily see her like, showing up at meetings or anything, but like she loves me
Right.
deeply, and I know she loves me, and I also know she's, got a lot that she has in her life that she's dealing with as well.
I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, just feeling supported
Mhm.
sometimes is honestly just enough, because that's why the term chosen family has become so important in our culture, and thank goodness for our chosen people, right? I mean, they do become our family when
Yeah, there are certainly moments where I feel like those folks are closer than family,
yeah.
depending depending on the season, or the year. But absolutely, it's such an important part of my life, and I think about the importance in my own life of like peer support and the people that I've selected and chosen to be around. Um, they are family to me at this point.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think where I'd love to know from this little place is like what what did you think you were going to do with your life, and then how you got to the Trevor Project, which is such a beautiful organization, and I highly suggest people, look it up. And I know you'll touch a little bit on, high level on what you guys do there, but take me to little Tommy and then going into high school and thinking back, like, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
That's so funny when you said little Tommy. The first thing I remembered was in elementary school we had like we had these like cutouts on a poster board of like a bunny that we had to decorate, and I decorated mine as like I think like a CIA agent or something, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be like part of, I really like putting mysteries together, so I'm gonna do something with that. And then if I
That's
like moved into high school, there was a piece of me that's like, oh, I'm gonna be like a psychiatrist. Like I'm really fascinated with how people work and like how minds work. And then, as you get to college, you start to think and you're like, okay, what do I really want to do? And I was one of the people that right away I selected the majors that I did, and I never changed. So I started with marketing and with English lit. And I think that if I'm really reflecting on all of that, it actually kind of, from my CIA to my psychiatrist days, it actually kind of paints an interesting picture.
Mhm.
Marketing has always been the discipline of like you have a product and you have a way to influence people to get to love your product and ideally buy and promote your product, which I think involves a lot of psychology. And then the
Mhm.
English lit side of it is I was always just fascinated by stories, how we tell stories. I mean, I just classic lit was always something I deeply enjoyed, and I always enjoyed sort of the queering of stories and how you can read them in different angles. And so I felt like it was kind of marrying all of those things together. And I was like, I think I want to go into marketing because I get to tell stories. I get to help influence people. And a lot of these stories are influenced around insights into how people work in the psychology of
Yeah.
what makes people tick. And then I decided along the way, I really want to do that for brands that do good in the world.
Mm.
Right before I joined the Trevor Project, the company I worked for was focused on there was a product that they had that allowed hourly workers to get access to their earned but unpaid wages. So every day after every shift, they could just access the money that they earned that day in a way that
Mm.
wasn't exploiting them, or in a way that allowed access to the capital without overdraft fees, payday loans, high interest rate credit cards.
That's cool.
And I really started to fall in love with like, there's a lot of technology for good in the world. So that's sort
Hmm.
of like, where I grew up too. Um, and then if you want, I can share more about how I kind of found my way to Trevor.
I would love that. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your
Yeah,
stage.
of course. And so I was at a software as a service SaaS company for about 4 years, and I was really, enjoying this tech for good. And someone reached out to explore the possibility of joining the Trevor Project. And
Mm.
at the time, I actually didn't know much about the Trevor Project. I had been on the board of the LGBT Center in Cleveland, Ohio for 4 years at that time. So I was very involved with the queer community of Cleveland, but I probably didn't know enough about national orgs at the time. And also, the Trevor Project was a resource that thankfully I had never needed in my life up to that point. And so
Right.
I just didn't know a lot about it. I was looking for, I think, just more meaning. And so the role that was focused on was Essentially, they're peer-to-peer programming, and specifically how young people can connect in safe places online to make friends and ultimately serve as a protective factor to reduce suicide risk.
Mm,
Now, at the highest level, the Trevor Project has been around. I think we just recently passed over 25 years, and actually, I think at this point we hit 27 years. So I'm really
right.
proud to say we've been around for a while, and our mission is very simple. It's to end suicide among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people, and ultimately to just see a world where all LGBTQ plus young people see a bright future for themselves. And there's a lot of ways that we do that throughout the org, but at the highest level, that is why we're here and why we exist.
I love that. Do you guys have any specific events that you typically share with community and any ways that anybody can help? I like to share that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course. So to start, I think the easiest way is if you go to our website, which is trevorproject.org, there's a lot of ways that you can sort of get involved. And so I say right from the beginning, by exploring our website, we have an amazing research team. So the way that we're kind of broken down at our org is we have what I would say is our crisis services team. So they are there 24/7, 365 to take calls, chats, and text for young people who are in crisis. And then we also have our prevention team, which is where I'm housed under. And under that team, we have four teams that are really focused on preventing suicide through different strategies. I lead peer to peer support, but we also have research, public training, and then um, research, public training, and oh, I'm sorry, I'm having one of those moments where it's just blanking for a second. Our advocacy team. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so, yeah, so ultimately, like all of these are tactics and strategies that we can ultimately help prevent suicide. And so when I think about, your question, how can people help and get involved? They can start by checking out our website, reading our research briefs, reading our mental health survey, checking out our resource center. Our amazing research team every year publishes 50, I'm sorry, recently we published 50 state reports that people can access. And I think I misspoke. I believe we publish these every other year where you can get access to your state's data to better understand the statistics around LGBTQ youth suicide within your state. This is kind of a great resource center as well for parents to access. You've talked about a little bit about, prior to starting this call about being a parent, what it's like to parent and how parents can access, the mental health resources that they need for their child, guides to being allies for transgender and non-binary young people, and even
Yeah.
things that, you know, um, might seem simple to some people can be really complicated for others, like understanding gender identities and pronouns.
Yeah, it's even me as like an old OG lesbian. I still am just marveling at all these new pronouns and how there's just so many different ways to express oneself and to be be gender positive and really, I don't know. I mean, it's just hard, like when your kid is like, okay, I'm now they, them as a pronoun, or he, him, or I mean, it's like you have to really put your best foot forward to really, I want to respect their wishes, like even friends and whoever comes over, I'm like, what are your pronouns so that I can be respectful. But I think it's kind of interesting because up until now, we've really kept Caden away from so much of social media and like this online. I mean, we have apps on our on their phones, it's like to protect anything and like triggers. And so I feel like those are tech for good in a sense
Yeah.
because they're at least buffering for us so that they're still, I want to give freedom, but I didn't grow up with this, it's like I don't know what it feels like to be born into a tech society. So what, Yeah, so what's your vibe on all of that, and where are you most excited to kind of dig into?
I think what I love the most in my job is talking to young people and working with young people. And we have, I'm very lucky and privileged in that I get to have like youth advisory groups and committees and sort of sit and understand
Mhm.
like what is it that young people are going through on a day-to-day basis, and then trying to help figure out where technology can come in and solve, right? And so at the highest level, I think of things like I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was fortunate enough to have a group of LGBTQ friends in high school. So I felt like I had supportive friends, right? I had like a few friends who identified as gay, and I was really lucky in that way. And I had a pretty like overall supportive household. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like, like the best, but it was good. Like my parents loved me, and I knew that, and that was important to me. And then I think about um, areas in parts of the US where folks don't have access to transportation or an affirming home or an affirming faith community or school or hospital or even access to an LGBT center. And sometimes these can be, hours away if they even have access to it. Some of the stuff that we've heard young people say is like, I'm so thankful for online communities where I have the ability to just grab my phone or my device and get on and talk to someone just to see, like, wow, there are other queer people like me. Because I don't
Mhm.
have that community anywhere else because I live in a small rural town and I just don't see that anywhere. So it sort of provides access to a space where they can be affirmed in who they are, and they can understand there's sort of a whole world of diversity out there, to let them know they're not alone in this. And I think that is really important, and it's really incredible, and it's sort of really amazing. And in all of our research, we're starting to realize that like there are we're kind of going down this path of what's called positive youth development. And positive youth development, if you're unfamiliar with the concept, it's it's an approach to youth development, that emphasizes young people's capacities and strengths rather than their risks and deficits. And it is
Mhm.
really like focused on intentionally cultivating developmental experiences and relationships and opportunities that ultimately lead young people to a place of thriving and
Mhm.
resilience, not just for themselves, but also those around them in society. And it's kind of a
Mhm.
shift because when we start to look at like all the literature surrounding queer young people, a lot of it is framed in like sort of I guess the risks and deficits out there. Like and often there's not a ton out there about like the strengths, the assets, like the amazing things that young people are doing. And so we've started to like explore this path, and we've started to see that, when young people are engaging more with our platform, for peer support, they are seeing, when the frequency of it is going up, we are seeing higher levels of developmental relationships and boundaries and empowerment and support and sense of community and all of these wonderful, amazing things that, um, some young folks might not have access to otherwise. And I think that that's sort of really telling at a time where, social media can often be deemed as really challenging or as really harmful. Knowing that we are intentionally trying to cultivate a space that is, safe and welcoming and affirming, and just a place where young folks can feel seen.
So is there like a Zoom group? Like do you guys list groups that kids can join from all over the country if they have access to a laptop of some sort?
Yeah, so ultimately, it's there's a program, it's a peer-to-peer program that we have called Trevor Space, and it's a place where LGBTQ young people can sign up and create friends online. It's a forum-based platform, so
Freaking
it's not.
cool. I didn't know
It's
that. I did not know this in my I missed that in my,
No, no, it's
in
okay.
looking at your bios and all my research. No,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
okay.
actually really fascinating. I freaking love this. Okay, so they can go on to Trevor Space. What are the ages, and do you kind of funnel them into different categories, like high school, middle school, like that kind of thing? Or what does that
So
look
young
like?
people can be within the demographic of 13 to 24, and so that is the
Cool.
population that the Trevor Project serves. And then just at the highest level, we do categorize that based into whether you're, which age group you fall into.
Okay, good. So if my child's 14, you're putting them with other kids
There's
their
there's
age.
there's there's minors, and then there's adults, and then there's spaces that are age restricted, and then there's public spaces as well. And so the way that
Great.
I say it is, everyone is bound to the same guidelines regardless of what age you are. So it does not matter what age group you fall into. Everybody is bound to the same rules, guidelines, and regulations.
Wow, I really, really love that. Gosh, that must be so rewarding.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I think what I really appreciate sort of about this work is, um, as we are working with researchers more, we are finding that, when I'm talking more about protective factors, if we can do things like well-being and friendship, those are areas that like are really helping with developmental relationships and developmental
Yeah.
assets. And so, as young people are developing friendships and they're meeting people at the same time, we are seeing positive correlations between the strengths that I mentioned earlier, as well as these positive youth development outcomes, which are well being and friendship. So, if we can sort of do that right, we're succeeding. And all of this is in the name of like, we want young people to thrive. We want them to survive and sort of, um, ultimately just see a world where they feel like they belong.
I just am really excited about that. I mean, I really like, I want to make sure that my child knows and the school knows and that they can have that. I will say my kid goes to a performing arts school, so fortunate. Choir, band, art, you name it under the sky. It's like there's zero bullying and they're all very fluid and affirming for one another, but I haven't seen my child thrive as much as she has or they have, over the last couple of years because they've made such amazing friends. Like I've never heard them laugh as much as they have because they're on calls now with them, like after school, they have their phone, but it's really amazing. So, like you said, if you're in an area, if you're a part of the country, does it reach Canada also, by the way?
Trevor Space, users are able, it is a US based platform, but users can access it based on, if their country allows them to access it. So
I gotcha.
users can access it from other parts of the world.
That's pretty awesome. I really love that. So, what is something that you're excited about within your job for 2026, knowing the shit show that is our country, that is Washington D.C. at the moment, without going into too much because we all, if you know, you know. What are you most excited about pushing forward for your own personal space, personal growth, as well as what you are excited about in your own career going forward into 2026?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's been a difficult year for a number of reasons. I think like when I think about hope and the things that bring me excitement, I love spending time with my partner. We
Mm.
adopted two cats within the last 2 years, and so we had one that just showed up on our back porch, and so we brought him in, and he's part of the family now.
So
Um,
sweet.
and I think about, really making space and time for the things that I enjoy. It is the end of year time right now, and I'm very excited to take a few weeks off, rest, recharge, sort of get my bearings right after what feels like a very long year with like a lot of ebbs and flows, I guess, to put it kindly.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and then travel, is another area that I'm really looking forward to. I'm very fortunate. My partner and I were able to travel to 4 countries this year. And so outside of
Oh,
the US, and just sort of having that international component has been important to us. Good question on the career. I mean, I think, when you're away from work for a few weeks, you always come back with like a really fresh set of like eyes and vision and strategy on where you want to take things. And as I was sort of like starting to wrap up my end of year, I'm really thinking about what are the future areas that I want to invest in myself and my team and the company, and how are the areas that we can continue to grow. And so I don't have like a solid answer for that today, but I think what I'm excited about is coming back and sort of having that fresh mindset where you're always reinvigorated. This work is, I always tell people this is the most meaningful work of my life. I don't think I've had a job this meaningful. I don't think I will have a job that it's meaningful, that is this meaningful. And so while I'm here, my job is to give it my all and to make sure that we are creating, doing everything that we can to serve our mission, which is to end LGBTQ youth suicide.
Yeah, I mean, it is a heavy mission, but I really value the work that you guys do, obviously. I mean, I was in the military, and so I look at military, the veterans and how that suicide rate is still prevalent. And uh, it- you just don't know what's going through people's minds, but all you can do is say, we're providing a space. If you don't have one at home, we're providing one here for you. And yes, it's online, but you might meet local kids and you might meet really great people that can help further your, trajectory in life. And obviously, I think you and I are very fortunate, and most of the guests that I've had on and will have on, we all are in this mission together. We're cogs in a wheel, a beautiful rainbow fortified wheel. And all of us are doing our part to continue to encourage the community to be whole and be themselves. And I think being in, like, even me having a podcast and really pivoting this focus because of what's happening, it has been soul gratifying for me. So when I get to talk to you guys and you're in these amazing organizations, or you're about to embark on being a congressman for, you've never wanted to be a politician before, and then this person's like, I'm just so like wanting to create change. And I think that's the beautiful thread, this beautiful glistening rainbow thread that really, I think, connects us to one another. And, in order to push the needle and educate, I think we still need to continually educate people out there and normalize. And I also think what you guys are doing by giving these kids such a beautiful level up, and much like this community, like the citywide, or youth organizations and stuff that are trying to do things more in person. Like you said, not everybody has an opportunity to
Yeah.
be in person. So it's a really beautiful thing. So what would you say, Tommy, like if I ask you, what does living out loud mean to you? What would your response be?
Oh, I think right away it's being my authentic self. And this was something, I mean, I was just having this conversation with, I go to therapy. I go every 2 weeks. I love therapy. My partner and I go
Good.
to therapy. It's another, it's a beautiful practice that we integrate in. And I was talking today about how lucky I feel to just be incredibly authentic to who I am. It's such a simple thing, but like, you can see me waving my hands around. I paint my
I
nails.
love
Um,
your nails. Yes, they're
and
fabulous.
and it's such a simple thing, but for me, but I love it and I'm lucky. I work at a place that affirms me for who I am, and I can show up any way that I want, and I'm very lucky that way. I live in a community where I feel the same way, in a household where it's the same way. And so these are things that over time, as I sort of like, as I grow and as I reflect on wisdom, there were parts of me where in previous versions of myself where I might feel very uncomfortable being on like my college campus 15 years ago, walking around with painted nails. And today I feel extremely comfortable just sort of being who I am in all the ways that I am. And that's just one tiny, like, simple example to show that. But living out loud to me means I get to be authentic and show up the way that I want to show up. every Halloween I am Tommy, but every Halloween Tammy, my drag persona comes out. And
I
it's like
love
become a thing where everyone knows like this is like my annual thing and I do this and it's important to me. And um I think living out loud is being who you are. And I'm very lucky and fortunate to show up in all the ways and the spaces that I can and to try to create those spaces for other. I think right at the start of this podcast, I always start out with, "Hi, my name is Tommy Marzella, and my pronouns are he, him."
Yes.
And I say that to signal this is going to be a safe space, and you can show up with whatever pronouns you have and how you identify. And that's perfectly wonderful and okay with me. And I want to create those safe spaces immediately. So even if people have met me 100 times and they're in a meeting with me, that's always how I'm going to show up and present myself, just to constantly reaffirm that.
I love that. I was thinking back a few beats when we were talking about the online and the age groups. And I was all of a sudden in my mind, because we were talking about career. And do you guys do any career development, or do you guys ever look for mentors to like do a guest as a guest speaker, especially to those eight, I'm thinking like 17 to 24, and because I think the beautiful thing I'm realizing, like talking to all of you different people, you all have very unique jobs. You came from for your own space of the country, but I think it shows queer youth that wow, they can work at one of these organizations and feel whole, or they can feel confident moving forward and learning how to feel whole in any situation or career. But yeah, I was just curious if you guys do any career development with those older kids.
We've done some research and we've started to see the types of content that young people want. And
Oh,
it's really interesting as young folks transition into adulthood, right? Like, um, and it's going to vary for everyone. There is no like sort of like truth for any one group, let's say, but everyone's sort of on a different journey. But some of the patterns I've noticed is that, you know, as people are in the 13, 14, 15 category, they are often sort of like starting to figure out their identity, their pronouns, their sexuality, right? And then as that sort of and that is fluid too, and that can change, and that
right.
is I just
And
kind of
it's
bucket
okay.
and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I just bucket this as like a generalization. And then,
Hmm.
sort of, as we see young folks sort of transition into adulthood, there are other pieces of content that they care about as well. How do I find an apartment? How do I budget? How do I apply to college? Right. And so these are all also very important things. So, to answer your question, I think we're starting more down that path to like get I guess better investment, to better, better listening from young people to hear what is it that you want so we can start to provide that. And then we would work more with like subject matter experts to kind of start to offer that. I think it's an area we can continue to focus on, right? And so I think that's one of the areas I'm hopeful to continue to advance in 2026 because it's important. And for me, I'm lucky in that I get to see a lot of peers jump in and offer their support and their guidance on like, here's what I've learned, right? And so back to the comment on the ages, like that is a benefit of having, we have 13 to 24-year-olds in public spaces, anyone can chat. And that's the
Yeah.
benefit of having that mentorship and really great there. And that's why I said it's very important for people to understand it doesn't matter what your age is, everyone adheres to the same guidelines because there is a lot of benefits from mentorship, right?
Yeah.
And so that I
Like,
want to
like, girl, if I was 13, this is what I would do different, right? Like,
yeah, be starting my 401(k) right now, right? Yeah, or if I could, but you get it, right? Like here's the,
mhm.
I jokes aside, like here is what I would be doing. And
Right.
it's so cool to like watch that and see how young folks are so quick to like support each other in this community. And it brings me so much joy. And it is like truly this like special pocket of the internet.
Well, I'd be happy to, I have so many people who I'm sure would jump at the chance to talk to queer youth and be guidance or be mentors or anything that you guys decide would be, a good fit. So I'm calling that forth because I think that would be a really beautiful, like another little vertical, if I speak marketing speak, right? Another little vertical for you to kind of lump, an extra funnel for you, if we say. But I love that. So towards like the end of my episodes, I typically just do some fun rapid fire. Are you ready for a few?
Sure, let's go.
Pew pew. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
think I'm ready.
Favorite way to start your day?
I like going to the gym at 7 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I know that's probably not a popular one, but that
If
is that
you're
is what I
in
love to do.
Cleveland, just
I
kidding.
know. And I have to drag myself through snowstorms those days too.
I love that. No, even on snow days, you'll get yourself to the gym.
I have my
Okay, I'm
accountability
impressed.
buddy. So back to peer, even I am 37, and if my friends cancel on me, I am so much less likely to go to the gym. But when my friends are like, I'm going, I will be there. And so we text each other every morning, and someone's always going usually.
Okay, I love that. That's awesome. You lead with example. You lead by example. Um, a song that makes you smile.
Um, a song that makes me smile. I feel like I need my Spotify playlist or something right now. I smile. I think anytime I hear something by Lady Gaga, probably because it was on my top Spotify playlist for the year. So I'm really enjoying, all
You're
of the,
like, this is everything's stressful. Gaga.
yes, I
Alexa,
mean,
play
yes, let's
Gaga.
just go to Gaga. So Lady Gaga makes
Exactly.
me smile.
I love that. Uh, Alexa, no. Alexa wanted to play it. Um, coffee or tea?
Coffee 100% every day. I'll drink a pot of it, and I will actually make iced coffee. We have a little espresso maker, and so I've learned how to make my fancy at-home drinks, so I don't have to go to a coffee shop every day.
Ooh, I like that. Um, best piece of advice you've been given.
Oh, that is such a tough one.
How
Um,
many? Yeah, you've probably gotten a lot of good advice over the years. How about around your relationship? Anything your
you know,
therapist said that was,
I think the thing I want to say for that is the best piece of advice that I've been given is it's a simple one. It's anything can happen. And I
mm,
believe that in all kinds of ways, like the good and the bad, right? So you can change your life anytime you want. Anything can happen. I don't know if that's cliche or not, but I guess that mantra or sort of that piece of advice helps me live in the present, knowing that anything can happen. I was not expecting my father to get cancer and pass away 8 weeks later, but that is what happened.
right.
And so, on the not so good side, and then on the good side, it's like I happened to meet my partner just by walking into an establishment like 9 years ago, right? And so like just anything
Wow.
can happen, and I don't know, it just kind of is a good reminder of a little bit of fate and destiny and all the things coming together.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it really does. It feels like, anything can happen is really the possibilities are sort of out there. The possibility, like it feels a little hopeful and doesn't feel cliche or anything because it also allows for curiosity, which I'm a really big fan of. And so kind of saying anything can happen, it's like you're being curious about life, regardless if, like you said, it's sad or it's a happy happening, it's being
And
able
this
to be
might help
curious.
me with my song before, because this is also an Ellie Goulding song, "Anything Can Happen," which I do love, or "Anything Could
Mm,
Happen," I think is the title.
it's a good one. And then what are you most hopeful about going into your 2 week break?
I am most hopeful that I will not overbook myself and actually find some time to relax. I love seeing people, and I've already have found like um, yeah, I'm like doing it where I'm like, okay, the morning, afternoon, eat like here's my coffee, here's tobogganing, here's dinner with friends, and so that is very good, and it is restorative for me. And then I'm going to do a few days of that, and then I'm going to have a few days where it's just like me and my partner and just like time for us. And so I am hopeful that I will come back truly refreshed and not feeling like I just did 27 things that left me exhausted.
Well, Tommy, I am so glad that you are in this world at this time. These kids need you, and you tell a beautiful story. And I look forward to reading more chapters that you create. So I really, really appreciate you spending time with me today and spending time with our listeners and educating them a little bit on what you do, as well as, you know, the good things that the Trevor Project is allowing for. And keep putting up, keep doing it, keep doing the good work. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's such an honor to be here. I'm really happy to talk about the work that the Trevor Project does. I'm happy to share more about my story, and it's been an honor to talk with you tonight. Thank you for
Thanks.
the work that you are doing and for allowing these stories to be told.
Thank you. I really genuinely I received that. That was my 2024 word. I receive. And then 2025 was dreaming a bit bigger. And then 2026 is rooted, is the word rooted. So it's kind
I
of
need to come up with, my words for 2025 were joy and sustainability. And so I need to think of my 2026 words, which is
Yeah,
which
well,
is
maybe you'll have a day of reflection on the lake,
yes,
go get coffee, maybe walk a museum by yourself, and then, kind of allow for that. So maybe you have to just book yourself some time.
I like that. I think I'm gonna hold some
It'll be a
time for you.
reminder, like
What are my
reflection hour, reflection, day or something.
That's a good
You'll
idea.
create something cute. You're a marketer, you'll spin it fun.
There'll be something in there, maybe a little emoji in the invite to myself. It'll be great.
I think you should. I mean, that's how I do it. I can't do it otherwise. If it's not on the calendar, it's like I just,
Not real.
poof. Yeah, exactly. But thank you again. I really appreciate you, and have a happy, happy holiday with you and yours.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Likewise.
If you liked this episode, please hit the follow button and remember, sharing is caring. Until next week, stay proud, stay loud.